Hi YouTube, welcome to Let's Fly VFR. Hi, my name's Gunny. Well, welcome everyone to another Let's Fly VFR flight. Today we're going to go from Aldinga all the way to Kangaroo Island. This is a flight I have wanted to do in the real world, and certainly talked about it quite a lot with my instructor in my flying time, and we thought about doing it a number of times, but it's probably more finances and things at the time. You know how it is, don't you? When you've got to pay for fuel, you're thinking how many dollars it's going to cost me to get there, etc. So that never happened, but today we're going to do it. So let me go through everything for you as far as the flight planning, and I'll go to the flight planning screen now and I'll show you the map and the plan as it is, and alright, be with you in a second. Okay guys, the plan today is Aldinga to Cape Jervis, which is at the very tip of the peninsula, and then we're going to cross some water. We've got about 20 kilometres of water to cross, and then once we get across there we'll do a right turn and head across to Kingscote Airport. Kingscote Airport. So what's the plan? So we've got initial section is about 25 nautical miles, and it's 226 degrees on the map, minus our 8 degrees. Remember, we have our magnetic variation to cope with, and it's 218 degrees will be our heading. I've got that already set in for us for today. That should take about 20 minutes. A lot of it will be slow because we're going to be climbing. I really want to get up to about 8,500 feet. Remember, east is least, west is best. So least is odd numbers, that's 1,500, 3,500, etc. And west is 2,500, 4,500, 6,500 and 8,500. So that's the plan. Because well, you need legally to be able to glide from at any time if the engine was to cut out on us, back to land, either across or back. So from halfway, if we lose the engine, we should be able to glide back, and at that altitude we have about 12 nautical miles of gliding distance at about 76 knots is the best glide speed as far as I'm aware for the Cessna 172. So what would happen if we lost the engine? And look, I know you're probably thinking, he's got it already set up. In fact, no, I haven't. I was going to put the failures on for the engine, but I started up the sim a few minutes ago and the engine immediately quit on me and died, so I can't be bothered with mucking around with it. So unless something really strange happens, we won't be losing any engines or anything on the way down there. So it's about the navigation, and it's about planning things a little bit better. Now, as you can see on the map, we have some airspace issues as well. Isn't that unusual? Because we're very close to Adelaide Airport, and the airspace steps up and then up again and up again over a distance, and that allows airliners to descend from their cruising altitudes, 35,000 feet or so, to descend over 30 minutes or so and get back down to ground level and come in and land. So we'll be flying underneath each of those steps. So the first step, as you can see there, I've noted at 4,500 feet. So we can climb to 4,500 feet initially. If we get there before we leave that part of the airspace, we need to maintain that. And then once we get to our next point, then we can climb, and it needs to be fairly quick, up to the 8,500 feet that I want, so that we can then cruise across. And once we get across, or most of the way across the water, we can really start descending slowly into Kingscote, or we can hang on, because it's from the right hand turn that we have to make to go to Kingscote, that's still 20 odd miles, so we'd probably maintain our altitude till about halfway across the water there. And we also, if you note on the map, there's a few little red rings. They're all alternate airports that we can take. So if anything happens, we've got somewhere to go. Okay, they're probably only small strips, and if you can actually find them in X-Plane, I don't know whether they'll be there or not. Setting 218 degrees, 20 minutes or so, 75 knots because it's going to be mainly climbing. Second leg is 11 nautical miles, pretty much across the water. 217 degrees is our map, minus the 8 is 209, about 7 minutes, so it doesn't really take too long to do that at 100 knots. And then our third leg will be from Pennington to Kings Coast. That's 22 miles. 270 will be our magnetic heading across there, about 13 minutes again. But again, we'll be descending down to pattern altitude as well, so that's probably worth thinking about. Okay, 500 feet over the 13 minutes, so 500 feet per minute from 8,500. So if you quickly work that out, you'll have the answer when I should start to descend. Okay, so you can think about that. I already know it is, so you can work it out. Alright, so let's get back into the simulator and we will get ready to go. So okay, my plan is we'll do a left turn here, we'll go down to runway 140 because that's where the wind's coming from today, 140 at about 10 knots. That'll give us a very, very slight headwind component, very slight, nearly not worth talking about. And the 10 knots, well, we'll see how that affects us on the way down. That's another video, working out windage and calculating for it. I've been a little lazy, I haven't really been doing it, I've just been looking at the wind and going, okay, we'll just keep track of that and then we'll adjust as we fly. So let's have a look around, got our taxiways. This is another nice airport. I'm pretty happy with the way this has come together. You would have noticed the screenshot. I planned to put a screenshot at the beginning of the vid for you. But all looking pretty nice. Happy with it, actually. It's come really well. I put some cars and we've got a few people around the place, trees, and you can actually taxi around and we'll check everything here, all our rudders and elevators, so we'll check our controls while we're here. So back into the front. So let's get into flying this aeroplane. Let's remove that. Let's make sure everything is turned on. We'll get our clock ready. Fuel, I've only put minimal amount of fuel. I've allowed for 400 kilos of weight, so that's me and you in there. If we've got passengers, you need to tell me because we need to change that. And instruments are all in the green, vacuum, everything's working fine. I'll just put the park brake on, vacuums and everything's all operating well. Set here, that's right. 110 feet is the airport altitude, and it's only 27 feet at Kings Coast, so that'll be interesting. That'll be right down near the water. Got our first heading already put in and everything else is fine. So we will have our transponder, we'll stick that on, we'll zoom in and make sure it's already altitude and up. So 1200, that's your standard VFR one. Probably shouldn't turn it on until we're about to take off or when to take off, but for now we'll put it in there. So we've got room here. We'll take a right and then we'll work our way down, and just confirming, yes, it's a left to right, so I need to go out and then we go back down there. Okay, so you ready? Seatbelts on. Let's taxi out. It's a VFR airport, so we don't need to tell them where we're going. We've got a little bit extra friction there. Cessna 172s are very popular. But we've got a twin. And the weather is genuine weather. I've just had a look. It's as I say, 140 at 8 knots Kavik, so pretty good visibility. Kavik's generally more than 10 miles or more. I have 25 miles set as my draw distance, just for performance, because you don't really see that much more than that. You certainly can't see details out there. So let's go out here. A few aircraft and people and benches over there on the right. Sitting around. Nice coffee shop here at Aldinga, so if you're ever flying around South Australia, pop in here and go and have a look at their Stinson as well. They have a Stinson here which you can go flying in. The pilot sits at the back and there's room for 2 passengers at the front. So before we enter the runway, we will do our run up and we'll just look down here, make sure our trims are set, rudders are all working, flight controls fully free and moving correctly, elevators, rudders, back to the front, and we'll look right and we'll go. Flaps are working fine. Flaps are fine. And flaps back up because we aren't going to need them, are we? That's looking all good. Pattern looks clear, nice and quiet. And let's run it up to 1700 seems to be the figure. It's to Aviation 101. Great channel. Really enjoy watching that. If you want to watch a young man going through his flight training and taking you on trips around the place. Okay, so that is a really nice channel. Enjoy it. Enjoy watching that one myself. And then we go back to the other magneto and back up. There's a reasonable drop there, but it does recover, so let's bring that back down and I'll push my pedals, my brakes, which will knock my park brake off, and we will make a radio call. Aldinga traffic, Cessna 172, taxiing and backtracking on runway 12. Aldinga. Aldinga 12 is the right number. Okay, so we're going to have a dirt runway to go on. So let's get out here, see what the friction's like. As you can see, the windsock going well. And X-Plane 11 is just updated to 1.1.0 beta 8, I think it is. Just done an update, so hopefully everything will go well. We don't have any issues. Oh, I have got another taxiway there. Thought I did, I just couldn't see it when we were parked, so it doesn't matter. Let's go out. Do need to find some decent grass. A bit dirty there, isn't it? Okay. Obviously we have hills to concern ourselves with as we take off. Okay. Brakes. Everything's going good. Let's just check flight controls again. Left is up and down, right. Let's go to the other side. Right. That's all working correctly. Back to the middle. Brakes on. Let's check instruments. You can see it's just showing a slight headwind. It should be vertical, so we've got a few knots there, about 10 knots. Everything else is looking good. We've got fuel, everything's in the green, all our instruments are up. Circuit breakers are in. Trim set for takeoff. And and ready to go. And our heading is 120. Aldinga traffic, Cessna 172, rolling on runway 12, departing for Kingscote. Aldinga traffic. Ready to go, straps in, doors closed. Let's power it up. Let's go. Right rudder as we go. Let's get it moving. A little less resistance than we were getting on the taxiway. That's good. Lots of right rudder in there at the moment. 40 knots, speed's alive. All centered. And we'll maintain a left traffic. And then depart overhead. 55, coming to 60, nose up. And there we are, airborne. A little bit of rumbling on the runway there. That's good. Like that. Looking for 76 knots as we're heading out. Looking good. Let's just check out. Seas down there. Check out. All good. Keep climbing. Coming up to 500 feet. Let's make a left turn. Clearing left, and there we go. Watch the nose, watch the speed. All centered, so we're doing alright. Don't need any rudder on the turn. Very gentle left turn, isn't it? There we go. I think that needs an exclusion zone down there, guys. I don't think those trees need to be there. Something might have to change. If you watch my video, the exclusion zones are at the very bottom. Draw a big box over where you don't want the forests, and they will be gone. Turning left. Maintaining our climb. We're above pattern level now by 100, 200 feet, which is good. And we'll continue to climb out. We'll depart overhead, check our pattern, check our runway, we'll keep climbing. You can see we have got hills ahead of us down there to the left. Nice shot of the airport as we go over. So plenty of runways, isn't there? The main one we just used, the actual tarmac one, and we've got two smaller grass strips that are all available to you when you come here. So it's probably the most daunting thing about coming to Aldinga is knowing which airport, or which runway you're going to need. Doing well, so we're up to 2,000 feet, so we're 1,100 feet AGL, or AMSL, the graph. This means sea level. We can get on to course, which means we're going to really follow the coast down here. Doing well there. Okay. Enough altitude, we can take our pump off. Don't need that anymore. Put that back. Very convenient just to look around it, wouldn't it? Okay, when we get VR, we'll be able to do that. You see very conveniently that the nose of the cowling sitting just on or just above the horizon, a very good visual reference. That's the sort of references you use when you're doing VFR flying. Your level flight, depending on your point of view, whether you're taller or a bit shorter, might be somewhere here on the compass ahead of you, might be halfway through, it might be at the top, might be at the bottom. When you're turning left and right, when you turn left it might be just under the horizon, sorry, just above the horizon, and when you turn right it might be just under the horizon as you make your turns. All these visual references are things that you've got to consider when you're flying this sort of aircraft and under these rules. The water's looking nice, isn't it? Nice to be home for a dip. It's just warming up in Australia now. and ortho 17, guys, if you're wondering. 17 seems to be enough for me. Climbing really nicely, actually, doing very well. Back behind us, where we've just come from. Okay. I'm amazed how quickly this aeroplane climbs. You know, it's taken hardly any time really to get up to what will be our cruising level for a few minutes until we get to a point where we can continue our climb. And our next climb I'm expecting will be parallel with this landmass here. Once we get to that point, we'll be able to continue on. Okay, maintaining 4,500. Time to level out. Bit of nose down trim. My trim's now working properly. That update fixed that, because my trim went really slow there when I got the last beater. Maintaining that, pushing the nose down. Now, also, now we're up here, let's back off the RPM a little. And looking over here, we need to do some leaning, so pulling it out a little bit, not too much. We don't want the engine to die on us. Trimming out. Back to the right a little. Maintain on course. Okay, doing okay. Do need to lose just a couple of feet, but it's not a big thing. They won't chase us with fighters from Edinburgh Air Base if we're a couple of hundred feet into the airspace, but we shouldn't be, so let's just fix that. Okay, and I'm going to be lazy and put the autopilot on. I don't see why not. Maintain the heading for us. Maintain our altitude. That means I can look around and not have to worry about that, and we can look at the scenery. Sit down in our seat a little. Just activate my rudders a little. I don't want them kicking out on me. USB ports like to drop out on occasion. Gee, that's nice, isn't it? So we've got reservoirs down, I think down this way. We've got some forest area there. Let's hop into the back seat. You can see over here, that would be over towards Middleton, Galway. We've last flight, we've come across from there, across this way. So the southern reservoirs for Adelaide. Cruise along quite happily for the moment. Okay, I'll just get the I've got the aviation map up in front of me, the real one, and just making sure that we've got everything right. So we've got Normanville coming up, and that should be pretty much just below us, I think, that first initial point. Excuse me, guys, try not to cough into your ears for you. I've got a man cold, but we're getting better. Don't need to dial 999 if you know the skid. Doing alright, so should be Normanville. here, so we're very close to a point where we can start our climb and get ourselves up. And I think I'll just, for ease, we'll just dial it into the autopilot and we'll dial in 500 feet a minute. And by the time we get here, you can just see Kangaroo Island in the distance up there. So that's pretty good. So I've got a 25-mile draw distance. It's just showing up now. Set up so you can look down. R and F on your keyboard, up and down, if you don't know what it is. It's a very popular part of South Australia down here. These southern beaches are very popular. We're just heading, we are actually heading over the water just a little bit. I don't think that's it's not an issue really. It's not like we can't make it to a bit of dirt very quickly. So, right, I'm comfortable that we're outside that first zone of airspace, and I'm going to initiate the climb. We'll make it about 600 feet a minute. How are we going here? Engine wise is good. Add some power. Just good. And I can probably still trim that to keep the performance. There we go. Just change that mixture a little bit. My understanding that is a good place for it to be. At ground level, that is about where it normally sits, about there. So, presuming that is a good mixture for it at altitude. I missed the Jabiru. The Jabiru does it all by itself. So, oh, we've got a boat. Use me scroll wheel and have a look what we got out there. There's a few ferries. There's an aircraft carrier here somewhere too, guys, if you find it. It could be it. The only disappointing thing is I don't think you can land on them if they're just scenery objects, because you just fly through them like you do hangars. So we're going to get down to this point here. We're climbing pretty well, and we're looking to go across here, which is the narrowest point, and then a right turn, and King's Cote will be up here a little way. So, hey, all doing well, all doing well. So let's have a run through. Speed's doing well, fuel's doing fine, and I had an hour and a half fuel. So the flight down there is about 40 minutes or so, and everything else is going well. Fuel's off, we don't need that. We probably don't need it today, but we will keep going. Now we're actually increasing. This is such a great climber. I might crank that up to 1,000 a minute. Let's see how that goes performance wise. Engine's performing well, everything's in the green. Coming up to getting close to 6,000 feet. AMSL, above mean sea level. So, it's very much summer textures, guys, here in South Australia. Would look just spot on like this. I'm very tempted to drape some different textures across it and just see if I can give us a winter texture, see what that's like. I'm not sure how that'll work, but I think that's something I want to try. So how you guys, how's your week been going? Oh, we're getting a little bit cheeky on there. We're losing airspeed, so let's bring that back down to 700 feet per minute. It's a little low. Keep track of what you're doing. How are we going on that? Is that going to catch up? No. Let's bring that down to something a little shallow while we cover speed. It's not very good, sitting below 60. There we go. Speed's just starting to come back now. So that's it doesn't look that far, but you know, it is a reasonable distance across the water. when we get to the headland here, which is Jarvis Point. Cape Jervis, sorry, Cape Jervis. And then we're heading across to Pennington. There's actually an airport here at Pennington as well. So we would have somewhere to go when we get closer. There's no other airports nearby here though. And it's pretty hilly. When you fly over areas like this, they tend to look a lot flatter, even if they aren't. And this does give you the representation that these quite hilly. So landing here, you'd have to be very careful. Have you thought about landing, what you would do if we lost an engine right now? Okay, you've got to consider the wind, which way the wind is. And the wind is coming from over here. So it's coming from our left, that way, coming towards us. So slight headwind, not too much, but a slight headwind. And a little bit of left to right component. So it would blow us across a little, but it's not doing too bad. So let's increase our climb again, because we have another 1,000 feet to go, which is, it's working out really well, isn't it? Looking out, and there's the other peninsula. It's your peninsula over there, and there's, you can just see in the haze Kangaroo Island going across there. It's a place I haven't visited, to be honest. It's you can get a ferry across there, but I haven't seen I haven't had an interest to go there really. So we can head across over this way, and then we're going to cross the water, and King's Coat is over there. So very happy we're going to be at our 8,000 feet before we get to the end of the landmass here. I guess this is always a good time to remind you guys, if you're liking the videos and you've sat with me this far, please hit the like button for me. It just really helps me a lot if you can do that. And if you like the videos, please subscribe. Just hit the button and hit the bell if you like. And there's a new one out every Monday at least. I plan to have nav flights or something out every Monday for you. Flights of interest, not just putting videos out for the point. If I have for some reason not been able to come up with a video concept that I'm happy with, then I would probably just not put one out. I want to put one out that I really want to do, and something that I think has some interest for you guys as well. So thanks for joining me and sitting with me here in the cockpit as we head across, and we're getting very close to our next point. So our next navigation point, let's get our details. Our next one is going to be a mere 11 nautical miles, so we want 209 degrees. So let's zoom in a little. And we've already exceeded where we want to be. Let's correct that, go back to altitude, and let's have a little minus that we better get down out of that. And while we're doing that, we want 209 degrees, don't we? So let's just wind this back. It's not very much, it's just a little correction really, and we should be heading over this sort of general direction. Okay, let's zoom in and have a look. It's 210, 20 is there, 209 is about there, so that looks good. Zoom back out, -2 degrees Celsius. It's a little cool, isn't it? Everything's looking good here, engine-wise, fuel, green, all good, and the vacuum side, all our instruments are working, and we're descending back to the 8,500 feet limit that we have. So King's Coat should be just over here. I'm sure there's a few courtesy calls you'd be making to air traffic just to let them know, even if it's done by landline prior to you're doing a cross-water flight like this on a single-engine aircraft, it isn't very far, and planning and thought makes the whole thing a lot better. Looking good out there. Let's just sit up in the seat a little. Nothing down in the water. Around, some googles around over there, just about to see the lake over there. Looks like that's probably what it is. Very popular down here for surfing, because as you go back up to the peninsula, back up this way, because it's actually a bay, if you want to call it that, there's not much in the wave front. Oh, we've got something down there. Water. A bit high up to see it, aren't we? But now if we lost an engine, we would be perfectly fine. We could go back, or we could let ourselves continue on over here to the airport and try and find that. On having been there before, you'd be a little bit cautious about getting to Pennington Airport. It will only be small, and it will only probably be dirt, so you haven't got time to locate it. But if it looks a little flatter over here than it does back, that's one consideration. The other consideration is getting the aeroplane back should you break it. And I would be thinking about going back. Maybe the beach would be a good place to go, or you didn't have any people. So doing well, pretty happy with this. Progress is good. We haven't been blown around. There was a little bit of turbulence. We are moving around just a tad. That's a technical term for a little bit on the RPM side. Just pop that back up a bit. Trim. I'll just move that a little. Doing very well. Bring up the GPS on screen. We've got the map. See where we're going here. Going well. Click on the GPS to get that up, and we're going spot on for where we need to go there. And there's the Kingscote Airport over there. So, hey, our navigation's doing well, isn't it, today? And we haven't had any real issues with wind blowing us too far across. See some lines down there. Is that airport? I doubt it, because it should be under our nose looking at the GPS heading, because it's right ahead of us. So, but that is our turn point, so all going very well so far today. A few ships out there, or possibly small islands. There could be a few islands along here. Look around to the back a little. There's something down there. I'm doing quite well. Happy now, so we're nearly over land, which is outstanding. So the dangerous bit is all but done across the water. Obviously be, if you're doing this flight, you'd have some life preservers, and maybe you would carry a dinghy. I don't know if you would for such a short distance. If you're doing longer distances over water, you'd certainly have provisioning and be ready for a ditching should you need to do that. And that's an art within itself, something I honestly have not even talked about or thought about, ditching water, because this is the first time real life or simulated I've actually chosen to fly over some water. Some ships out there. I think there's some container ships out there. Okay, doing all right. Oh, wondering whether you guys are happy with the views, and if I move around too much for you. I find, or I think these are better views than using the face track. because the face track seems to be a little bit, this is a little narrow, I can see the screen, but if I turn my head a little and I get some turn in the visual side of things, then I don't think you get to see it as well. So I think this is better personally, but happy to hear from you if you'd rather me just use the face track. That works pretty well as well. So now we're over our next waypoint, so we have a turn to 270, and we'll see how well that lines us up with our airport there at Kingscote. Well, no, because the dot for Kingscote here will come round and be right on our nose. Let's see how that works out. Okay, we're just short of the airport there. It's just out of view, so let's say the 270 should be right. Oh, there's the second alternate airport that we have there as well, guys. There's another one there. 3550 Kingscote. There we go. And it's now right on our nose, so just a little off 270. Ground speed 117 knots. That's doing very well. And across there to Kingscote. No, it's okay to use the tools, you want to back up what you think is right, and if you've got the tools there, then you should use them. It's okay just to use the paper, I prefer it, but I know that things like Oz Airways in Australia, I think that's the right company. Oz Runways, Oz Runways. They have an iPad app, and I'm seeing the guy on Mr. Aviation 101 on that channel. He's always got a pad on his yoke, just centered here, and it looks so convenient. But I'm also very cautious of technology dying at an inconvenient moment as well, so I'm sure you still got to maintain or have your paperwork with you as well. So losing it, just checking the performance there with the trim, the mixture I should say. We must be at the limit. There we go, it's just up there. It was a little dead there for a moment. I thought it might have been a little bit rich. So looks like we're doing well. Can't identify the airport yet. Let's wait till we get a little bit closer. About halfway across the bay, we can start a descent and make a radio call as well. And this is Ortho 17 as well, guys. Did a few tiles the other evening, so I've got here and all the way up the peninsula, which is where I plan to go next. So we've got another long flight from down here across the water, is where I really want to go. And I've built up Kingscote Airport, so I'm hoping that will look good. So I haven't actually had a look at it. I've done it in Ortho last night, and it looked quite fine in Ortho, so overlay editor. So hopefully it'll look good when we arrive, so we get something to look forward to. So doing well. Just check my navigation. Yeah, the 270, which I expected would be just a little bit over. We're 265, as you can see, and we're tracking nicely to it. And that could as well be in part the wind. What's that giving us as a range as well? That's a 50 nautical miles to the top, so we're 10 to 15, 15 to 20 at the moment, I would say, on the airport. So, yep, let's get rid of that. We don't need that. We need to be halfway across the water to be at our descent point that I had in mind. Now, if you're flying an aircraft that doesn't have an autopilot and you haven't actually done any flight training, guys, quite a simple way to manage your descent but maintain your current speed is just your throttle. You will find that moving at 100 RPM down will probably equate to about 100 feet per minute or so in descent rate. But what it will do, if you don't change your trim and you don't do anything else, you will maintain the same speed you have. So we're at about 100 knots now. So if I'm shuffling around trying to trim, obviously it's bouncing a little and it's trying to maintain that. But if you were to just bring the RPM back by, say, if we brought it back to around the 2000 RPM, the beginning of the green there, we'd probably get around about 500 feet per minute descent rate, and we wouldn't increase in speed because we've reduced some of the thrust. So the aeroplane is trimmed for a speed. Our RPM is going to give us that forward speed, so, and our descent. So. Well, it's not so complicated, is it? I'd love to be able to tell you some features here or things to look at. I guess if I was the good tour guide, I would have done a little search on Google and find out what things there are to see here. I think there's obviously kangaroos running around because it's Kangaroo Island. There's a lake, I think, at the other end down there. Okay, well, I'm comfortable with starting a descent at this point. I think we're at a distance where that would be a viable thing to do. So I'm going to take the autopilot off and try and demonstrate that. So let's reduce our RPM without changing our trim, and it will settle for a moment and then it will start to descend. As you can see, the VSI is starting to drop now, and you can manage that descent rate with your RPM. If it's too much, then just add a little bit of RPM, and see it's come back up. It's reasonably sensitive. May porpoise a little just initially, but we've got just over 500 feet per minute. So let's see how that goes for our descent. 500 feet per minute is pretty good. So I think I might just go with a little bit more. Just there. You don't want to be doing too much more than 500 feet per minute, guys, especially if you've got passengers. You don't need them thrown up all over your instruments. And here we go, we've got the airport ahead of us now. I'll scroll out so we can see it. Just pop the nose down. So there it is. And the wind's 140 at 10 knots. So we will be using, I'll just pop the nose down, this runway here. So we'll fly across, down, and we'll come back into there. You'll have a right crosswind component, but that'll be fine. I think I could have planned my descent. Maybe I've been yapping too much, guys. Hey? So I'm going to let it sit at 1,000 feet per minute, and if that happens to be a little bit on the quick side, then we'll adjust for it. Hey. We don't want to be doing that much. Power is your descent, attitude is your speed. Remember the difference between the two, guys. You don't put your nose down to go down, you just take the power off to go down. Also, being we're descending, what descending checklist would be. We'll be checking our brakes here, as you would if you're doing a circuit check. So it's brakes, fuel quantities, fuel pumps back on, harness hatches, and heat. And I'm sure we should have heat here, guys. We've got radio panels. I reckon we've got a couple missing, or this particular model just doesn't have it, but I would have thought we would have some heat here somewhere. What happens is your carburetors will, because of the lower pressure and the density of the air, you start to have a little bit of moisture often coming into the throat of the carburetor, and it can ice up, and it can ice up your jets, you know, as the fuel's being injected in. So it is a problem. Jabiroos, you definitely got to do it, and you check it as well. You know, it's one of those checks you do before you take off. You should get an RPM drop. If you're sitting at idle and you pull the mixture, sorry, not the mixture, the carb heat out, you should get an RPM drop, because it loses performance because it pushes hot air from around the exhaust back in to de-ice the carb or stop it from icing up. So yeah, but you get a small RPM drop, but then when you put it back in, it should come straight back up as well. And any time you have on a low power setting, as we do at the moment, and we're descending pretty aggressively, I guess would be the statement. We might just circuit here a little as we descend. Just shows that I should have started a little bit earlier than I did. So we're at 4,000 at the moment, so let's just descend. I'm hands off at the moment, it's trimmed nicely, it's just descending. I've got it in a little slight turn. Okay, here we going. Ooh, that's a bit aggressive, isn't it, on the descent rate? Let's get that nose up. It's only 27 feet above sea level, so it's not very high here at the airport. Okay, let's head down for a downwind leg. Oh, I can't see any buildings or anything. Oh yeah, they're there. Yeah. We're going to get in here. Mixture all rich. Kings Code traffic, Cessna 172 entering left downwind for runway 06. Kings Code. Could have done a better entry than that, but it's okay. It's quite pretty down here. A few aircraft on the pan. I haven't put any runways here. These are the standard runways. Okay, we can go to one stage of flap. A little bit of ballooning, trim, a little bit of power. Check back behind us, doing okay. 75 is a good place to be. Kings Code traffic, Cessna 172 turning left. Base for runway 06. Kings Code. And around we go, 500 feet per minute descent. Swing that 06 around. Check the pattern. Stage a flap. Power we'll take right off. And we'll bring it around. About there we go. We get a nice long runway, so and we're pointing into the wind pretty well. It's crabbing on me at the moment. So let's see how we go. Try and get it down pretty reasonably. My landings haven't been that great of late. The other stage of flap, I think. Okay, up on the brakes, ready to go. It's going to be a very long one. Actually, you can see that we should have come in on the other runway with the okay. Lots of left rudder now, just to straighten it up as we touch down. Maintaining the left, brakes on. Sounds like we're sliding a little, doesn't it? Yeah, let's pull that up. Okay. Oh, welcome to Kingscote. Flight was okay. The landing had left a little bit to be desired, but anyway. Any landing you walk away from is a good one. So I'm looking for a taxiway. Now, I can't remember if there's one down here or not. Looking, I think there might be one there just on the left. The wind's fairly solid from the right. And you can see it in the weather sock at the right there. When they sit up about there, that's about 8 to 10 knots. So. Going here. Oh, we've got another, either a runway or a taxiway here. What have we got? It's like the main runway. It'll be about 1.5. I'll taxi back down there anyway. Nice and easy down here. I'm back on some decent taxiways now. Oh, that's got a lot easier. Okay, back we go. It's looking nice. Steady back. I've got lights and everything. I didn't do the lights on this one, so they're out of the box. And doing good. There's a few people around. Looks like a marshaller. A few people over there. Is anyone waving at me? We might take it in here then. Oh, that guy over there's waving his arms at me, so let's head over there. The nice man says. I'm in waiting with some chocks there on the left. Yeah, the airport's turned out really well. Really happy with that. Got the parking and everything over the side. I'm not sure if that's actually there, but okay, all good. Park brake on. Let's do our checks. Oh, wrong way. Little drop and back. Little drop and back, and well, let's have a look. I'll use the camera function and we'll just climb up a little bit and we'll have a look around. Oh yeah, that's come up pretty well. Pretty happy with that. What do you think, guys? The grass there's got a bit to be desired, but yeah, it's not looking too bad. Pretty happy with the way that's gone. Let's hop back inside. Well, there we go, guys. We've travelled from Aldinga down to Kingscote, across the water, and we've survived. Again, thanks very much for just taking the time to fly with me, and again, we'll look forward to catching you on the next flight, most likely across the peninsula and some more water on Let's Fly VFR. I'm Gunny. I'll catch you again soon. Bye bye.